So the last talk we have before lunch is another former and current OBTS speaker, Sarah, who will be talking about the power of Powerlogs. So let's give a round of applause for Sarah.
All good. All right. Hi, I'm Sarah. I've been at OBTS for quite a few. Oh, now it's doing this. Cool. All right, so a little bit about me. I like to talk about creepy things. It's kind of what I'm known for. No less than maybe 3-4 people in the last few days are like, oh yeah, I remember when you did that presentation about dragging the body. Everyone always remembers the dragging the body bit. So maybe I'll have to revisit that next year. I'm not sure. A little bit about me. I work at iVerify, so it's a relatively new position. I started beginning of this year. I'm also a SANS instructor, author, and I do my own forensic research on Mac forensics, so I keep myself pretty darn busy. So Powerlogs, what the heck are they? So this one actually was kind of, influenced by a case that I got when I was first starting, almost my first day actually at iVerify. We had a person, a customer, who got stopped at immigration or border control, and they took his phone. They made him give the PIN code over, and they wanted to know what was messed with the phone. So we got a couple of things. We got a sysdisgnose, and we technically had a backup. Unfortunately, the backup password did not work, and they had already wiped that from their keychain. So we did not have a backup. So we were working basically just with the sysdisgnose. So for me, I love Powerlogs. Powerlogs are amazing. They are, you can kind of think of them as like a, I don't even know how to describe them. Like all things power, obviously, but it's also keeping track of an amazing amount of system status, usage, all sorts of different things. And they're pretty much available on all Apple devices. So I'll tell you how to grab these yourself. Highly recommend taking a look at them. We are only going to be able to talk about just a few of them in this presentation here. Oh, and worth a mention, about 3 days worth of information in the current Powerlog. You get a few extra days if you have the tar zips in here as well. All right, so how to acquire these things. Mostly sysdisgnose. So sysdisgnose is something that we work with pretty often. So usually a key combination on whatever device that you're looking for. But also if we have a full file system. So full file system, we're mostly talking about things like your gray keys, your Vera keys, your Celebrite type of devices. But also open source tools will certainly pull these as well. So it's pretty easy to get. If you are having, you got your laptops open right now, go ahead and just run a sudo sysdisgnose, and you can literally start taking a look at them as I am presenting on them. All right, it's a big old database, 700 plus tables. Now it's going to be pretty variable depending on the device, so kind of giving you an idea. I did it on Apple TV and a HomePod. We're looking at about 200, but on iOS, specifically in the last couple versions or so, it's upwards of 725. So you can kind of see the number of tables there. So it will take a moment to literally go through all of them. They are more or less, what you see is what you get. So if you can read the table, you can kind of get a pretty good idea of what data is going to be contained in them. All right, data retention, like I mentioned before, you have approximately about 3 days in most tables. Now, there's going to be some tables that hang out for like a month, maybe a couple weeks or so, but I would say 80–90% of tables, you're looking at about 3 days. So going back to the border control situation, unfortunately, our person was collecting them 3.5 days later. So that really, really limits the amount of work that I can do with Powerlogs for this example. So if you are coming into a situation like that, do your sysdisgnose. Make sure you do that as soon as possible just so you are able to collect that. Because time is of the essence when we are looking at some of these. All right, now the big kicker here, as a forensic person, timestamps are everything. I like precise timestamps. If I'm going to send somebody to jail or something, I want to be darn sure that thing happened at that very specific time. So most of the hundreds of databases on Apple devices, a thing happened at a specific time. Pretty standard. Unix epoch, Mac epoch, doesn't really matter. Powerlogs are different. Powerlogs, you might see this timestamp column in here. Most of the tables have a timestamp column. And you're just like, oh yeah, that's a Unix epoch, cool. I can convert that, easy peasy. And then you run into something like this. So this example over here. Now, unfortunately, Powerlogs, they're more of like, they're basically calculated with a drift. So the drift is stored in a whole other table. So as a forensic analyst, as maybe a newbie analyst, I might just look at this timestamp and say, cool, this thing happened at this specific time. As a seasoned analyst, you run into that and you're like, oh no, something is bizarre here. So a lot of the times the drift here, it can be sometimes a few seconds. It can sometimes be a full year. It can be months. It can be weeks. It's very much dependent on the device. So precision here is very, very key. So the drift itself is all stored in its own table. I call it the time offset table. I'm not going to go over the entire table name here, but it's the time offset table. So us as forensic analysts, we mostly use the system to calculate this out. So you basically take the timestamp, you find when it's within that time frame, and that's going to be presented as our timestamp here. Now, this is the one thing that still bothers me to this day, and I've been looking at Powerlogs for 10 plus years, give or take. I cannot get precision. I cannot get it down to the second. So unfortunately, the biggest caveat to Powerlogs is it's kind of around that time, but it might be a few seconds off. And a few seconds, 5, 10 seconds, maybe you don't think that's that much, but when you're doing a lot of investigations, every second, sometimes nanosecond, sometimes matters. So being as precise as possible is really important here. But with Powerlogs, you just don't have that precision. And if you do know how to get that precision, please let me know. Call me, because it's been bugging me for truly 10 years. All right, so a couple of other timestamp caveats with this one. I've already mentioned the drift here. Most of the tables will have their own timestamps. This is, as far as I know, the only database in all of the Mac Apple world that does this drift thing. So if you look at any other app database, timestamps are usually pretty darn accurate. So as a forensic analyst, if you are not aware of this timestamp issue, it's going to be bizarre. And you're going to wonder, like, was the user actually doing this thing at this one time? And it's not going to match up with all of the other data that you might be looking at. Great little blog here from Ian Whiffen. He put that out a few months ago. Highly recommend kind of testing on how to take a look at those different timestamps. And just for caveats for this presentation, I'm going to show you a bunch of different examples. Certainly not 725 different examples, because I'd be here for the rest of the week. But timestamps have been normalized. So I created a script to basically go in and normalize them best that I could. So yeah, that's definitely something to be aware of. And they are also presented in local time. So local time to where we are right now. All right, so let's go take a look at some of these. First topic I'm going to talk about, so I'm kind of switching around to different topics here. Application usage. A lot of the times as a forensic analyst, I want to know which app a user was using at a very specific time frame. And we got a lot of different variations of that one. It's going to be somewhat dependent on the type of device. So on macOS, we're going to be looking at the frontmost app. So you can have multiple screens. It's whatever app the user is actually looking at that time. I will generally sort by timestamp here because Powerlog, it really acts more like a log. I want to see it in a temporal context. And it's just going to show you your bundle ID. So if you know what the bundle ID is, cool. You know that you're going back from the terminal to signal and system preferences, login window, and so on and so forth. So you can kind of calculate how sometimes long a person was using a specific app for. iOS, a little bit different. We are looking at the screen state table. So screen state, just like the other one, it's going to store the bundle ID so I can see, okay, I'm on my iOS device, flipping through the different applications here. So you even see things like the lock screen, the camera, going back and forth. So this one's actually an example from a couple of days ago when we had some interesting travel stuff. If you have not been caught up, I highly recommend scrolling back to the travel Discord channel. Let's just say there were fights on planes. Somebody got punched in the face. There was police. There was all sorts of messed up things. We got, I spent a night in Barcelona. It was a whole thing. So this is kind of the example of that. So I took the picture here, sent it over to the Discord, so we see what it looks like in this table. Now, on the iPad, right? So the iPad, you can have multiple applications open. So this is just an example of everyone's favorite hacker film here. Hackers, of course. And they have an amazing soundtrack. And if you didn't know, there's actually 3 different soundtracks, and I own all of them. These are the only CDs I still have in my world. I don't even have a CD player except my car. but I still have these CDs hanging out. So you can kind of see with the screen here that maybe about 1/3 or so of the screen is taken up by Safari, 2/3 is taken up by this is actually Apple TV here that I'm looking at, and we also will potentially have the dock here at the bottom. So this is not actually my dock, this is the dock on the iPad, so it kind of shows and reappears every once in a while as well. So this is all represented as percentages here. So if we look at the screen weight, we can kind of figure out, okay, the dock here, the floating dock, is taking up 0.14 of the screen. Apple TV and Safari here are, more or less 50-50. So this is not exactly like the screenshot. This is kind of where I had them split side to side. But we can see the percentages there as well, which I think is pretty cool. Vision OS, everyone's favorite, most expensive device that they may or may not actually use. That's me. I don't use it. It hurts my head. So Vision OS, just to throw in another example here, you can in fact take a sysdisgnose of the Vision Pros here. It's the 2 buttons. You kind of have to click them, but you end up taking a lot of screenshots, just like any other sysdisgnose on iOS. And we still have the bundle IDs here as well. So you see a lot of the reality heads-up display in here. That's kind of this view, if you will, kind of the iPad strapped to your face kind of view here. And I'm kind of going back and forth watching Disney Plus movies. All right, a little bit about location. All right, so a little bit about locale here. What we can't get in the Powerlogs is true location. That's Routine D. I love that database. It's amazing, super creepy, one of my favorites. But with Powerlogs, they are still going to try to capture where a person was at a point in time. So there's actually a couple of tables that keep track of the time zone. So this is me traveling from Cyprus over to Italy. So we flew from Napoli and over to Madrid because that's where we got, diverted to because of the floods in Ibiza, unfortunately. So you can see that we have the kind of the structure there as well. A little bit about application usage. So this one is pretty cool. So it'll show you which applications are actually using the location here. So again, by bundle ID, we have the executable name, the different accuracy, so whether it's very specifically accurate or not so accurate at all, and the type. So significant locations, a lot of this is routine D based. It is going to be very, very specific. But again, we do not get the precise location. We're not getting location coordinates in this particular example. Airplane mode. So a little bit about airplane mode, and if I'm going really fast, it's meant to be really fast. So airplane mode, when you're flying, you're supposed to put it on, or at least we're supposed to, right? So I kind of want to see if I'm turning that on or off. Well, that's fun. That is unexpected. Anyway, what this is supposed to show you is the different, yay, Google Sheets, or slides, is the different network carriers. So you go flipping back and forth different network carriers. What you would see here is some Italian networks in here, flipping back and forth to T-Mobile, back to Vodafone, now that we're in Spain. That is a terrible little bug. CarPlay. So we got CarPlay as well. So if you connect to CarPlay, whether it's over Bluetooth or over wireless, or whether you're connected, we will certainly get some examples of this as well. So it basically just says, yes, you're connected, no, you're connected. So a lot of Boolean values are going to be stored in here. So a couple of different CarPlay tables that we see here. A little bit more with CarPlay, and this one's going back to screen state. So CarPlay has its own OEM screens. So we see Apple CarPlay splash screen because it's doing the mirroring on that. So whatever you're doing in CarPlay, you're actually seeing it on the device as well because it literally, truly is just a mirror. All right, transactions. So when you're traveling, and for some reason, I forgot my wallet on this trip. Turns out you don't really need it. I pay for everything with the Apple Wallet. So these are some of my recent transactions. Now, you're not going to see where I purchased it. You're not going to see how much I purchased it for. But if you do have the extra data, if you have the Apple Wallet database, the Passes23 SQLite database, I think I did a presentation at OBTS a few years back on that one, is you can see exactly when that transaction actually happened. So you don't get the full metadata, you get the timestamp of when that transaction occurred. All right, a little bit about some communication here. So we got telephony activity, and we have in-call service here. So I like these two tables. Once again, we see airplane mode going back and forth, and we see call status here. So got called. This is actually when we were rebooking flights because we were stuck in Barcelona. So Erica called me. This is what that's going to show up as. So whether it's ringing, and finally when I pick up the device. Doesn't show me who is calling, but that's, again, something we can look into other databases. Then we have in-call service here, so we do get to see which type of service is actually being used, whether it's telephony in the normal phone app, or FaceTime, or potentially another third-party app in here as well. And all the way down to what the status is, whether the call was foregrounded or backgrounded, call start, stop. You can kind of see how long a particular call was. So we're really just getting into what type of data is in here. This can all be kind of pivoted to different databases in the system, if you have those databases. App usage. So this one is the aggregate app runtime table. And it's exactly that. It's aggregating how much time you spend in a certain app, either on a per day basis or a per hour basis. So it kind of aggregates everything in the, at the last hour of the day. So this is the same example as I showed you before. We're looking at the FaceTime calls in here. And this one has quite a few different columns. I'm only showing you a few here, but I really like the screen on time frames. And if you're in a call, it'll show how much time you're in a call. So we see things like the 8 seconds here. 8 seconds, if I remember correctly, because this is a 24-hour, it's because it's a missed call. So Erica called me in the morning because I wasn't getting ready for the taxi. So she calls me. Of course, I met her in the elevator. And then the in-call screen on time, we had a conversation for about 109 seconds using the FaceTime audio. All right, let's talk about media. So the now playing, so these are the exact same databases, just two different devices. On the left-hand side is an iOS device, or an iPhone device. On the right-hand side is going to be your iPad. Literally just showing you which app is in use. It doesn't show you what you're playing, but it shows you what the state of that is. So 0, 1, on or off. Are you actually watching something or listening to something? So all things media, the now playing is a very good one. All right, a little bit more. We're going back to CarPlay here. So we see the car audio output. So if you're streaming maybe some music over your car or something like that, if you're doing it over a speaker, if you're taking a phone call, we can see all the different bits and pieces there. And the event forward output doesn't exactly say what the output is, but it's going to show you whether it's been muted or what the volume is. So all these different things are being tracked. All right. Another one, audio app. So audio app here, this one's another from a CarPlay usage here. I want to know where it's actually going to. So what type of device is it actually going to? You'll have the different application names. WebKit you usually find with Safari, but of course other apps could potentially use our WebKit as well. Security cameras, music, pretty much anything that has some sort of audio feature to that. And we can see over in the audio route where it's actually going out to. All right, video usage here. So another example from our fun trip a couple of days ago. So got off the plane finally, or landed actually, and I started browsing Discord, see what's up, see if anybody else has got diverted or something. And somebody posted a fantastic video of the flooding in the airport. So we knew exactly what we were getting into. We're like, oh yeah, that's bad. Yeah, that's definitely not a good one in there. So this is just an example of me taking a look and catching up on Discord, and then spending the next 2 hours while sitting in the plane, trapped with a bunch of police, a bunch of angry people, just going on Instagram and be like, I don't want to pay attention to the chaos that's happening on here. Just show me cat videos. That's all I really want to see. All right, a little bit about network stuff. All right, so we are looking at the cumulative network usage. So it basically aggregates that. When I was stuck in Barcelona that morning, I had a very early morning flight. I got up at about 4:30 in the morning. I was like, oh crap, I'm going to Levin's class. I got to download the IPSWs or he'll get mad at me or something like that. So I downloaded them. You can see it just shoots right up there. So it is keeping track of all the bytes that you are downloading. Again, you don't know what you're downloading, but something is happening on that device. So up bytes or down bytes, you can kind of see that I plotted it out here using DB Browser. More network usage. This one is the usage diff. So this one, kind of the highlighted section here is when I was on a flight. So what you're kind of want to see here is the cell in, cell out, Wi-Fi in, Wi-Fi out. So you can see it's I'm using the cellular versus maybe the airport Wi-Fi or something like that. Checking up on Slack here right before we take off. No activity. And then going back onto cell as soon as we land. So you can see that flipping back and forth depending on the type of networks that you are connected to. Hotspot usage, just had to use that here because the Wi-Fi here is just terrible. So active, whether it's active or not. So you can see that Boolean value, 0 or 1. The different hotspot states, we actually find it in quite a few different tables. For whatever reason, Apple loves to basically have the same thing in different tables. Like batteries, it's like saved in like 5 different tables for whatever reason. But again, I'm not really going to complain. Maybe I get a little bit more data. Maybe it's saved for a little bit longer. All right, system status. All right, so this one's a little bit different. This one's going to be a backlight state change. So this one comes from an iOS device. So, you know, if you've ever, like, you wanted to check the time, you kind of touch a little bit, you put it in your pocket, stuff like that. When you see suppress here for view obstructed, that's because it's either the device has been turned over, maybe it's in your pocket. There's even a whole other table about just being in your pocket, which is kind of bizarre. But it's just basically going to say, don't turn on the the backlight so it doesn't waste your battery. So lift to wake, if you just touch it, if you connect it up to power, it's going to light up that screen. So it does show a little bit of activity when the user is doing whatever they are doing on the device. Boot times, I always like to take a look at boot times, but the event none config is a bit more than just boot time. So we have what the auto lock is set to. So we got 300 seconds, what the firmware is, device boot time, what's the size of the device. Sometimes you get a sysdisgnose and you have no physical idea of what the device actually is, so it's going to give you a pretty good idea there. And which versions you have installed in here. So you can kind of see that where it was an upgrade here as well. All right, going back to macOS. I know I kind of spent a lot of time on iOS because it technically is a little bit more interesting with 700 plus tables, but macOS has about 500 or so tables. So device state here, this one is for the peripheral agent. And this is me connecting up my iPad 7. Let's pour one out for the iPad 7. No longer good for jailbreaks anymore. Well, still good for jailbreaks, just not on newer OSs, of course. So I'm connecting that to my Mac, and I'm going into DFU mode. I'm installing Pale Rain. And that's what you can potentially see in there. So we see the Pongo USB device and, of course, the iPad as well. And thank you to everyone who does jailbreaks. Like, a lot of my research comes from jailbreaks. So it's becoming a bit more difficult these days. All right, Vision Pro. Vision Pro is kind of known as maybe having a 2-hour battery life. If you're watching a movie, it drains in like 90 minutes at best. So you kind of have to have it charged while you're watching a movie. So you're still tethered using that. So we can plot this out, and you can just see it go draining over a period of time. So this is me just watching a Disney Plus movie, 3D movies. It's actually pretty cool. But I truly do not use this device for anything else. I use it for research. That's what I tell my tax people. All right. Apple Intelligence, because I have to say the letters A and I in every presentation, I think is required at this point. So Apple Intelligence came out, and they're doing those summaries now. So Apple Intelligence does the summarization of some of the notifications. There are multiple tables in here for a lot of notifications, like how many notifications you get with certain apps at specific times. But I do like to show this one. Just because it does have a lot of that kind of usage information. So, if your Signal is blowing up or your Discord is blowing up, you can actually see all those notifications coming in. Again, you can't see the content of it, but you can see the activity surrounding it. All right, so, oh, that's not bad, actually. All right, so that was speedy. That was just a review of some of the Powerlog tables in there. We've got about, 690 more tables to go over. I really do recommend you take a look at your own. You are going to know your own data the best. Not all tables will be populated. Not all tables will be obvious what they hold. They hold an amazing amount of information, a 75% of which I still have no idea what it's storing. So it's storing a lot of hardware stuff. It's storing a lot of baseband stuff. So if you are getting into some of the research, definitely check into those tables because it really could potentially hold some useful information. But anyway, I will not keep you from lunch any further. If you do want to talk about all things creepy, It's kind of my love language, if you will. Feel free to hit me up for my different emails on Twitter. I don't really respond too much anymore. And my blog is there as well. Questions? Oh, okay. It's incredibly creepy. You're welcome.
Jokes aside, back in the first couple of slides, we were looking at the location.
Mm-hmm.
Does turning on or off location services pertain to this? As in, if I turn off location services on the device, will it still record my location or not?
All right, so the question is, if you turn off location services on your device, so you go to your location services settings, toggle that little switch off, does it still get populated in the database? This is not something I've tested, but if I had to guess, I would say it would not populate. Again, purely guessing. Easy test, though. Questions? Yes. Which one's my favorite table to look at? That's a nerdy question. I like it. It's got to be the app usage. It's fascinating to see how people use their apps. I do a lot of profiling of different users, how they use the different things, and I think that's probably one of the most fascinating.
Thanks for the great talk. You stumbled about anything connected to the platform SSO thing?
I'm sorry, repeat that again?
You stumbled about a table that holds information about the platform SSO?
The SSO?
The platform SSO, the thing that connects with the Asia environment?
Are you asking me if there's a table for that? Or, oh, I don't know. The answer is I have no idea. With 700 tables, nothing comes to mind, but I kind of forget more than I remember at this point, because there's just so much. Ooh, in the back there, yeah. No, yeah, either one. Are you asking whether there's audio video in the messaging apps? Oh. Yeah, so like Instagram, I think I kind of showed an example of this. When you're browsing Instagram and it plays the videos, you will see some evidence of that. It's not going to show you the video, but it will kind of change the state going back and forth with the different communications, different videos. So pretty much anything audio-video based is captured in some respect. Behind you. So if you're looking for like latitude, longitude type of locations, you're not going to find that in this database. It is somewhat privacy preserving, but I would go to routine D databases, which are very conveniently protected. So you need the fancy Cellbrite varied keys and all those fun magical black boxes, as I like to call them, to get to that data. But it's good, real good. Question is, can you interfere with the times to make it save maybe more than 3 days? I don't know where that would be. I have not particularly seen a setting like that, but I've also not specifically looked into it. I would be surprised, but I don't know. Maybe there's like a profile you can download to the device or something like that. Way in the back, green shirt. Hi, Erica. Oh, that guy. Okay. You're just waving. Okay. Say it again.
Do we have to interact with sysdisgnose to get those SQL tables, or can we toss them off the disk?
You can get them through sysdisgnose. You can get them from a full file system dump. You can get them through not a backup, unfortunately, but pretty much full file system dump. So your Cellbrites, your Vera keys, Gray keys, things like that, or sysdisgnose. If one had one of these databases, what tool would I recommend? DB browser. And if you are playing the CTF, it's definitely going to show up in the CTF. Yeah. And also sign up for the CTF. Yeah, so you asked a fun question. So the question was, if you weren't able to hear, is do I think some of these tables should be protected? Because just somewhat sensitive information. My security side says probably. My forensic side says no. I want that data. Yeah. Hacked. Uh, most tables are 3 days. There are some that are longer. Like how many entries? Not that I've seen. It's mostly a temporal-based limitation. Yeah. Oh, I don't know about Apple Store demo mode. But definitely lockdown mode doesn't do anything with these. No. Which is good for me. All right, cool. Thank you very much, and have a great lunch.